In this series on gardening, I'm joined by Susan Fox, consulting rosarian from Gaga's Garden, who's going to talk about ways to avoid injuries while gardening. So I'd like to welcome Susan Fox. So nice to have you back, Susan.
Hi, June. Thanks for having me. And I'm so glad we're going to talk about this subject that seems to be largely ignored in any community of gardeners. So it's a really great topic.
Well, it's interesting because you think about physical activities that people love to engage in and the number of accidents that happen, but in the same token, gardening is excellent exercise, but a lot of injuries happen, a lot of things that you don't expect happen that wind up putting people into the hospital or making them have surgery for things that they didn't even dream could happen. And I know that you have your own experience to share.
Exactly. And we can probably start out with when you begin your garden projects, you probably heard this, but you've really got to have the right tool for the right job.
Yeah.
And I would like to share an experience because uh, I am on, there's very little part of my property that is flat. So, as we begin to get a little bit older, we don't see ourselves as aging. And you can ask every single person, or at least every person I know, and they do not see themselves any older than when they were 18 or so. So,
Yep.
uh, and if you have a fall or something, most younger people will just look to it like, oh, you're just getting older. They don't think about the circumstances. So I want to tell you a couple things that happened that anyone can see themselves in this situation. I was close to the house and I was just digging around a rose bush, and I tripped over a rake and I fell. It's hard to imagine that you can fall flat on your face, and I fell flat on my face, and I broke an orbital socket, and I did not know it until later on in the evening. I thought I was fine, but I went into later I went into the bathroom and I kind of was sniffling and blew my nose, and my whole orbital socket blew up.
Oh,
And
God.
isn't it wonderful that in Google, I put that in Google, I said, what does it mean when your eye swells shut, like you've seen those chameleons or something, and they said it's a broken orbital socket. And so that earned me a trip by ambulance to Barnes Jewish in St. Louis, and
Wow.
they were saying, here's the good news and here's the bad news. And then 1 year later, I had a sprayer in my hand, and we're on a hill. And do you, as a child, wouldn't you think to let go of something? Do you remember when you're running so fast that you can't let go of something? I started running down the hill so fast that I didn't let go of it, and I couldn't stop running. And I fell that the year before, it was my right orbital socket, and I fell on my left orbital socket and broke that orbital socket. And when I went to the eye doctor, I said, have you ever had anyone break both orbital sockets? And he said, no. Oh, he said, wait a minute. You and bar fighters.
Yeah. Figure.
We have to think of safety when we go out to work in the yard, and those things of safety are making sure that things we're not going to step on rakes, that we're going to have the proper shoes on, and primarily it's the proper tool for the job, and that we are not going to I don't know why I didn't let go of the sprayer. I mean, we have to think safety, have the proper gloves, have
It happens. I remember years ago going out to the garden barefoot without gloves because I used to like to touch the soil, get my hands dirty, this and that. And it took poison ivy and actually red ants to teach me that you need to wear the proper attire when you're outside. And I remember growing up listening to stories about people that would have all sorts of accidents, ranging from, cutting their toes off at the lawnmower to just all sorts of horrible things because they didn't take the time to wear the proper attire. And once
absolutely.
you get poison ivy, you never forget it. And I know you've had poison ivy. The last time that I had poison ivy, once again, I was being lazy. I was just going to run out to my compost bin. And I don't know why I did this, but I had my slippers on and socks, and I took both of them off, and I slipped my feet into an old pair of gardening sneakers that I actually use when I cut the lawn. And I ran outside to dump whatever I had to in the compost bin. And then a little later that evening, I couldn't stop scratching. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I scratching? And because it was the winter time.
Hmm.
And then I'm thinking to myself, I had to have come into contact with poison ivy with those shoes. So I immediately washed it was the top of I think my left foot. I immediately washed the top of my left foot in Dawn, the blue original Dawn dish detergent. I let it stay on there. I coated it, and then I rinsed it, I think 3 to 5 times in ice cold water, which is always pleasant. And then I repeated the process 3 more times. And luckily, I was able to get rid of, any further irritation. But you tend to forget, people just, they're focused on one thing, have 10 other things going on in their mind, and they just forget the basic things. And the same thing with gloves. I remember once I was outside and I was doing some yard work and didn't even think about this, but it was a rose bush that actually did this. I ran past a rose bush, and there was a branch that was, I don't know, I ran into the branch and I grabbed onto it for whatever reason. I guess I lost my balance, and it went through where my thumb is, like right here. And I remember my brother was over at the time, and thank God he was here, and he managed to pull it out. It was very painful, but
Hmm.
stupid things that you do that you don't think about. And when you get older, the recovery time is longer. And yeah, it's great when you're younger and you can make these mistakes and you heal really quickly. But when you get older, you really feel that pain now, don't you?
Absolutely. And the things when you're younger or even a child, you don't think about, you're out there and you're with the hose, and you might run a little bit of water in the garage. Well, you better think about it when you're over 50, because if you walk into the garage and you have spilled water or run the hose in the garage, you very likely are going to slip in it. And a fall when you're under 20 and a fall when you're over 50 is going to possibly have consequences that you might live with a few days. So be very careful about slipping on wet concrete. So these are so many things that you can think about. Have
Yeah.
shoes, have the right boots. Just, we had a problem with gnats. You can get a hat that has netting. You just need to cover up, and you need to have, I found some, oh, it's like a soap for poison ivy. I mean, I'm
They have all
outside.
sorts of stuff. Technu has a number of products that are
Yes,
available.
they are wonderful products. And
I stand by Dawn. Dawn dish detergent works for me. I no longer buy all the goop and everything. After experiencing poison ivy numerous times, I remember once I got it on my stomach, and it was because I was doing all sorts of things, and I was lifting and stretching and everything. My abdominal region was exposed, and I didn't think anything of it because it was summertime. Wasn't a big deal, but it was a big deal because I came up against a little tiny poison ivy bush, and it was in mixed in with these weeds that I was trying to clear and didn't think anything of it. And then the scratching was just out of control. And my doctor actually had to prescribe I can't remember what he gave me, but oh, it was just it was horrible.
and you know what, folks? Please don't forget, and I'm not a doctor, but most everybody knows this, keep Benadryl or something like it in your
Yeah.
house. And because it can stop quickly a reaction to, I mean, I have a reaction quickly to poison ivy, and I I take oh, what is it? It's a common over the counter. It's for indoor and outdoor
Yeah.
reactions. So it's just there are so many things. If you want to stay outside, you can stay outside and work safely with just a little bit of thought. And it's the things that you may say, well, we're talking about over 50. Sometimes I think it takes to be over 50 to get all the common sense that we need.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like good parenting. I mean, it's the things we say to our kids. Oh, don't go outside without your shoes on. You're going to get
Yeah, I
stickers.
had good parenting. I had all that. I still did it anyway because I was in a rush. I had things to do. I didn't have time. No, but you really need to take the time, you know.
Yes, you
Susan,
do.
I wanted to ask you about tools because I know that you're a wealth of resources when it comes to different tools. And plus, you have a lot of nifty gadgets that really
Yeah.
does help, especially if you're have issues with your back, your knees, whatever.
Mhm.
I have so many friends that have, all ages that have different uh issues where they can't do some of the things that they used to love to do.
Mhm.
A friend of mine who's a big tennis player just had double knee replacement surgery, and I'm just like, how did that happen? And it just does. So, what are some of the tools that you can recommend that people can buy in their local hardware store that would help, just from basic weeding to maintenance? What do you have?
I I use I love Corona, and you probably know that because
Right.
I
Yeah.
carry I carry Corona rose pruners. I carry Corona little nippers. I carry them everywhere because, and I love the Corona. They have the huge Corona loppers because, you know, I've noticed that I am beginning to have, I mean, let's face it, I've been diagnosed. I thought it was so, well, I'm sorry, it's not funny, but to be diagnosed with tennis elbow from pruning roses, you
Wow.
know, that's what I was diagnosed with because you see this motion, this constant
Yeah.
motion. Well, it's the same as, and I also got diagnosed with tennis elbow from throwing a briefcase in a taxi cab from all the years that I was an executive. So I'd carry heavy uh, suitcases, heavy briefcases. And, that's before you couldn't just grab someone to take care of your bags. I mean, everyone
Yeah.
would say that. Well, just get someone to help you with your bag. You can't find someone always. So,
And what's to say that they don't rip off your bag today? I
yeah,
mean,
I
you know,
couldn't get anyone. So I was always carrying heavy bags. And eventually, you're going to pay with and when your shoulder from constant this constant motion and this constant motion of throwing heavy bags, and I did for years, throw heavy bags and heavy briefcases into cabs. And where the pain is is here, you want to use the best tools possible. And now I do mosaicing, which is constant in my hand. So I
That's
use,
good for arthritis, though. That's excellent exercise. Yeah.
yeah. So you want to protect what you have as much as you can. And I say constantly, we watch our kids, and my son has been a state champion mountain biker forever, and I constantly think, is he going to be able to do that? I mean, he's still doing it, and I keep thinking, oh, what, how's he gonna hold up? I mean, I will tell you this, June, I ran, I was a runner for years and years and years, and I even read all the running books, and never did you know that when I did go to this is really important as part of what we're talking about, not once in running and fit news at the time did I ever hear them talk about. I went to a foot doctor and they said, well, are you a dancer? Because you don't have any of the, oh, I can't think of what they call it, but
Spurs?
I have no fat on the bottom of my feet.
Oh,
I
okay.
I ran it all off, or and they can do something now, but there's many things that we don't think about when you're running for, you know, 5 miles a day, you're walking all the time. So I'm just saying, find the best shoe that you can find to protect your feet, to protect your body, because we do have joints, we do have parts that wear down or wear out.
Yeah.
Or, what is that called? That's on the very bottom of your, I can't think of it, but I don't have any. I just walk straight on the
Soles of your feet?
hmm Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I'd like to share some of my favorite tools from my garden. First and foremost, hats. I have
yeah.
whole bunch of different types of hats. Um, I even have an orange, what looks like I'm going deer hunting hat, and I like it because it does shield me from the sun, and it's just comfortable. Even
Mhm.
though it's kind of hideous, I'm not a big orange fan, that bright orange fan, unless I'm at a University of Tennessee game. But the hats are really critical for me, especially your blonde, also your hair just turns white. So, and I get sunburn and it's very uncomfortable. So hats are a must for me. I
And
don't care if it's
check your
over, if it's overcast or whatnot. I always have hats on. My second favorite thing to wear, believe it or not, is lipstick because it does protect my lips.
your lips.
You
Mhm.
do get sun blisters. The sun can be cruel to your skin, so I always go out there with my SPF, whatever I have available, the spray stuff, the lip, the lotion. And then another key tool for me is aprons. I can't live without aprons. I
Oh,
wear aprons when I'm in the house. I wear aprons when I'm in my garden. And I find aprons are very helpful, especially when I'm pruning or if I'm planting or if I'm harvesting. And I have aprons that I purchased in fortune offs. I have aprons that I was given as gifts. I have all sorts of different quality aprons, even some that I bought at you know garage sales that were from restaurants that people were selling, and they're very durable. I have to say. But what's nice is that I try to look for aprons that have pockets, especially multiple pockets,
right.
and I try to find the ones that have like a pouch like up here so I can keep my cell phone close, because I'll leave my cell phone out and then I won't hear it and I'll forget it's out there because I get lost in what I'm doing outside. So I try to keep it close, and especially since I might have the rare opportunity to photograph some bumblebees that are foraging or something else that might pique my interest. So,
Mhm.
the aprons are really so important. And I would say, lastly, I do wear high socks,
Oh,
usually
yeah.
the old tube socks. They're not easy to find, but I try really hard to find cotton ones, and I seem to find them in supermarkets of all the strangest place. The sporting goods stores and whatnot, all the socks that they have out there are synthetic. They're not natural fibers like cotton, and they're not. When you do find them, they're not affordable. I'm not going to spend $20 on a pair of cotton socks. It's crazy. But when you do find them, I've had a lot of luck finding them in supermarkets of, the strangest place to find them, but I do. And I try to find the high socks, not just the crew socks, but
Yeah.
the high socks, because they do protect you from poison ivy. They do protect you from any critters that decide that they want to have you for lunch, or if you have ants. Like the one experience that I had with red ants was just horrible. And or if you have a little run in with some yellow jacks or something like that, that can be a lifesaver, because when they attack, they call their family members, their friends, and they just come at you. So
And,
those are my go-tos.
I forgot one thing, and you don't, if you can get it, I don't have it with me, and the DeWitt tulip trowel is one of the most wonderful tools that I ever had, and I have to get another one because my apprentice, we were uh, planting allium, and I put all the allium bulbs in, and I had my tulip trowel right next to me, and she brought over tons of dirt, and she
Buried it.
buried it, and it was inscribed with my name, and I don't even know where to dig it up, but it is it,
Metal detector.
I, and it's too deep, and I'm just going to order another one, but get a DeWitt. All of DeWitt tools are forged of,
They're handmade.
they are absolutely remarkable. They're the
Yeah.
best you can get, and so, and also the rakes of Corona. I've got every length of a rake of Corona that I use because they're plastic. So like right now when you have to get all of those leaves out of everywhere.
I actually have a little rake that was used for picking up dog poo, that complete with the metal pooper scooper. It's got a long handle, and let me tell you, it's very helpful, especially when I have to rake those little areas. But
Yeah,
my birthday present to myself last year was two leaf blowers. So now I just blow it.
they're wonderful. Yeah, but
But yeah,
I can't stress for that old saying, like an inch in what is it, a stitch in time will save nine.
yeah.
I will tell you, every minute you put in your safety, in your clothing, in your tools, in your equipment, you will be paid back tenfold, really.
I think another helpful tip is, when you are doing something that's a little dangerous
Hmm.
or risky, and if you're by yourself or if you're doing it by yourself, to let somebody know. I
Hmm.
remember once I was doing something on my roof, and I couldn't get nobody was available to help me, and I had to do it by myself. And I actually fell off the roof.
Oh,
And I landed in the azalea bushes, which was always pleasant. It hurt. I had some scratches. I mean, nothing got broken or anything like that. It's just that, it hurt because the brush it's very harsh.
mm,
So I let a friend of mine know, and he called me just to see if I was okay. And I was grateful for that call. And I told him, I said, yeah, I had a little bit of a run in with the azalea bush. And I was just happy that, um, you just to have somebody, doesn't matter, check up on you just to make sure that everything went okay and whatnot, is always good. And lastly, if you can if you can just minimize the stress to your back or to your knees, grab an old milk crate, get an old folding chair, do whatever you need to do. Get the knee pads if you're going to be on your knees. Or if it's too much on your knees, just grab an old blanket and just put it down and, sit down. But the thing is that don't sit down for a lengthy period of time. Get up, because what's going to happen is if you're down on your knees for 15, 20 minutes in a clip, you're going to have a hard time getting up. I remember volunteering with the Dahlia Society, and some of the people that I worked with were significantly older than me. And I didn't really understand at the time why they had these knee pads, this and that. And, you know, um, I have good knees, thank God, but they didn't. And they would say to me, "You have no idea how hard it is to get up." So what they would do is they would have the knee pads, they would have like this little pole, almost like they were going to go skiing.
Mhm.
They would push themselves up when they were, down on their knees for too long of a period of time, but they usually would just do it for a couple of minutes, then get up and move around. And I think that's the key, to just keep moving and not stay in one place. But, dahlia gardening, it is a very big, um, it's a demand on your body because there's a lot of work involved, but it is also very rewarding. But, just be reasonable. And when in doubt, use pots. Pots are great. You can have a container garden. You and I talked about in a previous segment, having a container garden on your patio. There's all sorts of things that you could do like that. But and
Absolutely.
anyway, Susan, do you have any last suggestions before we go?
Just roll up your hose. Roll up your hose. It's certainly not worth the trip over or have that
Oh yeah.
one neighbor that you think, she thinks she's steady, and the next thing you know, she's out there sprawled all over. So, keep keep things picked up because uh that's just a good tip, okay? And sure enjoy talking to you, June. So
Thank you, Susan. And folks, please check out Susan's website, gagasgarden.com. Wealth of information. She's a consulting rosarian. If anybody needs some advice and wanted to design your garden, what have you, she's everywhere. So thank you, Susan. And thank you for tuning in. To be continued. I know Susan's going to be back to talk about some other topics. And it's always great to have people like Susan, you know, just talk about these things because it's such a popular subject, but people really do need to take care. Anyway, have a great day, everyone.
you too, June. Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye.